Hey everyone, what's going on? If you've been adventuring through Digimon Story Time Stranger and feeling a little bruised by odd bugs, soft locks, or those mysterious "why won't this quest progress" moments, you're going to like this. The new update just landed, and it's a chunky fix pass that smooths out mission flow, stabilizes late game encounters, and clears a bunch of those weird edge cases where your tactics felt right, but the game just didn't respond the way it should. I've gone through the notes and also cross-checked in-game to see how it feels, and I want to walk you through what actually changes for your playthrough, what to test on your current save, and a few smart housekeeping steps to make sure you feel the fix rather than wonder if it's working. Let's start with the big pain points. Progression blockers. If you've been stuck on story beats with names like Reunions Bring Trouble or Resonating Thoughts or Gathering Storm Clouds, this patch is essentially the keycard you've been waiting for. Previously, these quests had occasional triggers that wouldn't fire, NPCs that would refuse to move to their next spot, or objective markers that pointed into the ether and never realigned. The patch team has gone line by line and untangled those scripting knots. In practice, that means when you load back in, those conversations or interactions that failed to appear should now pop. For anyone who put the game down because of a stuck flag, try loading your last active file and toggling the map transition once or twice. Step in and out of the affected zone to nudge the newly repaired triggers. You shouldn't need to start a fresh run. The underlying conditions were patched rather than your save being invalidated, which is a huge relief. Side missions also got some love, and if you're a completionist, this will be your favorite part. The Worthy had a rare state where the progress counter desynced. From Pegasusmon to the world could misreport outcomes if you handled an objective out of the designer's assumed order, and Olympos Tuela's test match occasionally forgot to award the final step. All of those have been corrected. I recommend visiting your side mission list and sorting by in progress. If you see one that's been collecting dust because you hit that invisible wall, go give it another whirl. One handy technique: if the mission involves an object pickup, return to the original spawn point and recheck the prompt, then run the loop again. The goal here is to refresh the mission's internal checklist so it sees what you've already done. The patch specifically calls out improvements to objective markers and related UI, so you'll notice way fewer instances of map icons lingering after you've wrapped things up. Late game players, especially anyone heading into the final boss sequence, should feel a tangible difference as well. Two headaches were common: the HP bar displaying wrong values mid-phase, and special skill activation going silent right when you needed your signature moves. Both are addressed. The boss phases should now reflect accurate HP feedback, which matters for timing your burst windows and survivability planning. If you're the type who likes to stack buffs and then unload a coordinated set of skills, you'll get consistent responses rather than that awkward "why didn't that fire" pause. As a quick prep tip, enter the fight with a save right outside. Run through your intended rotation once to feel the timing, and then settle into the real attempt. You'll notice the rhythm feels much more dependable. New Game Plus folks aren't left out. There was a quirky situation involving Aegiomon and Aegiocussmon, forms not behaving properly when carried over into the reset cycle, as well as a weird Digivolution command hiccup during defensive of Nishi Shinjuku under NG Plus conditions. Those have been tightened up. The takeaway is that your carried over team should digivolve as expected, and command options that were grayed out or out of order are back in line. If NG Plus is your plan for grabbing missed entries in the field guide or pushing special build experiments, this patch means you spend more time theory crafting and less time wrestling the menu. Speaking of builds, let's talk battle system fixes, because this is where the patch quietly changes how smooth combat feels minute to minute. First up, buff and debuff icons. If you've run tactical compositions where you're tracking multiple layers, offense boosts, defense downs on the enemy, speed manipulation, you might have noticed the iconography sometimes fell out of sync with reality. You'd see an icon that implied you were still under a buff even though the effect had expired, or vice versa. That led to misreads in tense moments. The patch aligns icons with real effect duration and status, so what you see is what's actually active. That alone reduces those "oh no" moments where you committed to a risky trade because you believed you had a layer of protection that no longer existed. Then there's the odd synergy between HP-SP overflow and certain passives that could lead to unintentional outcomes. That's the polite way of saying some niche setups let you get into states the designers never intended, or conversely, prevented your intended effects from landing. Those interactions have been clarified. You can still run high sustain builds, tanky lines that push regeneration and SP economy, but the math behaves. If you were relying on a very specific overflow trick to cheese encounters, expect the ceiling to be more reasonable. If you were getting punished by a misfire, you should now be able to enjoy your intended compensation loop without the system breaking. Combo magic accuracy and chain behavior also received a polish. There was an issue where, in certain sequences, the game treated your chain like it was locked at a perfect threshold, artificially inflating hit chances or damage in ways you couldn't reproduce on demand. That's been corrected. It's good news for competitive integrity and for that sense of replayable reliability. When you land a combo at 100% now, it's because you earned it with timing and setup, not because the underlying math hiccuped. If you're testing damage ranges, this is a great time to lab your numbers again. Record a small sample of damage outputs against the same mob type, see the spread, and calibrate your expectations for boss phases. A sneaky, nasty bug got swatted in the interaction between crystallized and extra strikes, where the state could lock the turn order or stall the battle entirely. If you've ever stared at a frozen timeline and wondered whether you should close the game, that's the one. After this update, those states should resolve without trapping you. For auto battle aficionados, there was also an issue where auto could trigger the wrong special after a mode change. That's been fixed, so you can trust your set and forget approach when you're clearing materials or running dailies. Exploration is smoother too. Several collision and map traps in places like Abyss Depths, the Akashic Zones, Heat Cosmic, Downtown, and the Special Forces base have been reworked so you don't clip into scenery or get stuck on geometry seams. If you ever had to warp out because your partner's pathing didn't know how to step off a shallow ledge, breathe easy. The experience of moving through those spaces is cleaner, which matters a lot during those longer sessions where you're cycling between battles, resource chests, and quest markers. I'd still recommend occasionally camera panning before sprinting into a tight corner in the Abyss Depths. The lighting there can make edges hard to read, but the invisible snags are far less common. UI and markers got a general pass labeled as other usability improvements. And while that sounds vague, the effect is real. The map behaves more consistently when you complete an objective, and the focus snap between submenus feels snappier. For folks on controllers, pay attention to how the cursor returns to sensible defaults after you close a subscreen. That little polish reduces misclicks and wasted inputs over a long session. Also, in your title info or your console's update history, you'll see the update reflected. Always worth a quick look to verify you're actually on the new build before you troubleshoot anything else. If your store or platform took a moment to propagate the patch, give it a manual update check, and then relaunch the game so everything initializes cleanly. Now let's talk about how you can best take advantage of these changes, depending on where you are in the journey. If you're still early, this is the perfect moment to establish good habits. Keep a rotating trio of saves at chapter endpoints. Patches like this make it painless to revisit if you ever suspect a hiccup. When a mission step completes, glance at your map to confirm the marker relocates. With the fixes in place, it should, but getting used to that rhythm trains your eyes to spot anything off, and catching it early is always better. For mid-game players dabbling in side content, pick up the missions you abandoned because something felt off. The patch specifically addresses those categories, which means you get the satisfaction of clearing your backlog without feeling like you brute-forced a broken step. For late-game and end-game players, especially those optimizing teams, this is a great excuse to refresh your builds. With status icons syncing properly and combo math behaving, think about your trust but verify loop again.